Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there to my actual left, as you cannot see on YouTube, unfortunately, is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing pretty well. It's been a while, about 2.5 weeks since we last recorded, and certainly a lot has happened. We have a lot to get into, both on the field stuff, off the field stuff. I guess technically not on the field, but you know, stuff that'll be affecting the on-field play next year. One of which just happened like 20 minutes ago, or was reported 20 minutes ago. Yeah,
we'll get into that a little later. But yeah, you know, 2.5 weeks off. Usually November is a bit slow. And you know, we previewed awards last episode. And I guess they were announced since we last recorded. I don't know. We could debrief it for a little bit, but it's...
I don't know. It was mostly expected stuff.
Yeah. I think...
Aaron Judge got 28 of the 30 votes, two of which, the two Ohtani votes were from both Angel voters.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. Like, the only things that went against my predictions were they went with Harris instead of Strider.
Yeah, whatever.
Which, yeah.
I still would have picked Strider, but oh well.
Yeah, I picked Strider, but I think Michael Harris had a very, very respectable season.
Well-rounded, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he would have easily won. He would have easily won last year too.
Yeah.
Both of these guys had better seasons than
Jonathan India
in 2021. But yeah, and yeah, Francona won instead of Hyde. Showalter won, which we both
obviously.
And Goldschmidt won MVP.
Terry Francona won Manager of the Year.
The Cy Youngs were as expected.
Yes.
Yeah, no surprise.
Both unanimous.
Yeah, both unanimous. But yeah, you know, I mean, nothing too surprising to dive into. But yeah, some of the early action in this offseason has been done by the Los Angeles Angels. They started it out with signing Tyler Anderson to a 3-year, $39 million deal. Tyler Anderson is coming off, a very good year for himself, where he went from the Mariners, went to the Dodgers, helped him out a lot. He had a 2.57 ERA. And I think like a 3.10 expected ERA.
The most important thing to look at with Tyler Anderson last year was the strikeout to walk numbers, because they were phenomenal, especially earlier on in the season. He had 4.06 strikeouts per walk last year, a career high for him, and of course he's been pitching since 2016. 2.57 ERA and 178 and 2/3 innings pitched. I mean, he looked fantastic out there last year, and he's certainly gonna provide a lot of depth and be a solid 2-3 starter for the Angels.
Yeah. Also noted is his average exit velocity against last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was
85.
It was 85.0 miles per hour, a 28.5% hard hit rate against. Both were top 10% in the league. Yeah, his average.
Both were top 2% in the league.
Yeah, both were in the 98th percentile in all of baseball last year.
One thing that's very interesting: very low strikeout rate for him, only 26th percentile, but a very high chase rate.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think there was probably just a high chase contact percentage, and it explains the exit velocity.
It definitely does.
If you're hitting the ball out of the strike zone, you're probably not going to hit it very hard. So, makes a good amount of sense. But yeah, Anderson was a very pleasant surprise for the Dodgers last year.
His chase contact percent was 60%, which is pretty. It's not like absurd, but it's a decent amount.
Yeah, the league average is 58.3%.
Yep.
But yeah, like with a guy like Tyler Anderson, he was a very pleasant surprise for the Dodgers. My concern is, so I imagine that the Dodgers and whatever analytical departments or pitching departments had, they probably changed Tyler Anderson for the better. I don't know. I don't have any statistics to back it up, but given how the Dodgers develop pitchers as opposed to the Pirates, most of his career was with the Pirates, so they don't develop pitchers
The most important thing, I think, was the drop in home runs per nine. Outside of 2020, he had a home runs per nine above 1 and even close to 1.5 pretty much every year of his career. And he was at .07 or .7 this year to combine with a 1.7 walks per nine. His WHIP was literally 1.002. So he was allowing basically exactly a base runner per inning, which was excellent.
Yeah, I think my concern might be the Angels aren't known for having great pitcher development. Shohei Ohtani's great, but I feel like he does his own thing.
Well, but Tyler Anderson theoretically could just do his own thing as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess we've seen that with I think the Astros have been known to transform pitchers well, and when Charlie Morton left, he didn't really skip much of a beat, and Garrett Cole, there's a whole thing with foreign substances and such.
But he's still been excellent.
He's still been good. He
just gives up a lot of home runs. That's literally it.
Yeah. So we'll see about it, but I don't know. Whenever the Angels sign a deal like this, I'm man, I just feel like this is going to go in the wrong direction. But
Those YouTube videos where it's try not to laugh challenge, and it's a bunch of funny videos, and you have to try not to break. Every offseason, the Angels play the try not to believe in this team game.
Yeah. Right,
They make a bunch of really compelling moves that make sense and fill the biggest holes on the team. And they'll always have the Trout, Ohtani, Rendon talents, and you're just hey, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If you look at this team.
Right. Yeah.
It's the try not to believe challenge.
Yeah, because theoretically, this deal makes really good sense. You could argue it's a bit of an underpay for a guy who just had a 2.57 ERA.
And not only that, but I think we saw some of the best pitcher development with the Angels last season that we've seen in any recent year. Reed Detmers in the second half looked really good. Jose Suarez continued to look excellent.
Patrick
Sandoval. Yeah, they have a very left-heavy rotation too, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go into next year with Anderson, Detmers, Suarez, and Sandoval all in their probably starting rotation.
Yeah, and I know Anderson and Sandoval have very good change-ups. I wonder if Detmers has a change-up, because it could just be the lefty change-up, the lefty change-up group.
We'll see how the rest of the division is against lefty change-ups.
Yeah. Detmers uses change-up 11% of the time. It's not, but it's there. There's something there.
I would say, Reed Detmers, I could be wrong, but he doesn't strike me as a velocity type of guy.
Yeah, no, I don't see it, which is interesting for a guy who was drafted so high.
To be fair, his velocity is probably only going to go up to where it is now. He's only 23 years old. And his fastball velocity is 45th percentile last year. So
yeah, So yeah, the Angels got Tyler Anderson. So now their rotation is Ohtani, Anderson, Sandoval, Detmers, which that's a relatively young rotation as well to add to it. And
there's potential, no doubt.
Yeah, I think it's less of a what if rotation now than it was last year.
For sure.
And also Ohtani improved his pitching dramatically from last year to this year, along with all the other things that he does. So Anderson goes to the Angels. The Angels also traded for Hunter Renfroe.
Yeah, that poor guy just can't stay on the team.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's funny because the way he's been the last couple of years, it's to a point where you know exactly what you're going to get from him. He did have a 255 average last year with around league average on base percentage, but really good slugging numbers of 492. That's well over 200 isolated slugging, which is slugging percentage minus batting average, which essentially means when he hits hard. He had a 10.9% fly ball rate, pop-up rate.
Yeah.
That's pretty high. the thing that really stuck out to me right now, 37.4% ground ball rate. That's like very low.
Yeah, he's clearly a guy who wants to lift the baseball.
Yeah.
Which
He's one of those launch angle guys that you've heard about.
Yeah. Like those guys, you're going to expect a higher pop-up percentage.
Mm-hmm.
He has 10.9%. League average is around 7%. So, but he's also going to not hit the ball on the ground, which kind of makes sense why he would have a lower batting average and a higher slugging percentage.
Yes.
But yeah, like
the power's there, obviously. 78th percentile average exit velocity, 70th percentile hard hit rate.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, the Red Sox had a weird thing with him. They traded him away for Jackie Bradley Jr. along with prospects David Hamilton and Alex Benelis, and it upset the fan base quite a bit. It upset me a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. It was also right before the lockout.
Right before the lockout.
Which, by the way, happy birthday! Started the lockout.
Yeah, very funny.
It was literally December 1st into December 2nd.
Yeah, but Renfroe, he has some tools. He has great power. He also has a great arm. His defense, he doesn't have the worst range,
but he has a strong arm.
He has he can make up for it with a good arm. So he has some great tools. But he's like a 2 to 3 win player.
Yeah,
to put it frank.
I'm trying to think what they had. There's the question marks in the Angels outfield last year of like Taylor Wood was solid, but like the Marsh Adele type.
Yeah.
Obviously they moved on from Brandon Marsh, and they're still holding on to Joe Adele right now, which is fine. He's shown flashes of his potential, but you have a defined guy who can be there with Hunter Renfroe to join Mike Trout and Taylor Ward.
Yeah.
In the outfield next year.
Right. Yeah. And I think you'll get what you'll get.
Yes.
Like outside of, like 2020 was a major outlier, but because of how short of a season it was. But yeah, you look at like the OPSs and the slugging percentages. Yeah, you get what you get. It's not gonna blow you away. You'll get a high number of home runs, which if that's the only stat you're looking at, then you'll be like, oh my God, we should have never let go of Hunter Renfroe ever.
Yep.
But yeah, he'll give you home runs. But yeah, I think, and we could get into the next thing the Angels did.
Mm-hmm.
They traded for Gio Urshela.
Yes, they did.
What do you think of this one?
I really like the move. Gio Urshela, he replaces, you have a fallback option for Anthony Rendon at third base, and you have a shortstop for if he's there. I'm assuming they probably put him at shortstop because he's played there before. He kind of just played third for the Yankees because they had every other position. But Gio Urshela is very versatile as an infielder. And, they had Andrew Velazquez as their primary shortstop last year, who is phenomenal defensively, like a legit defensive wizard, but he had a 53 OPS plus and by the way, that was in 350 plate appearances. So, you can't have a guy like that in a competing lineup every single day. I think it really adds a lot of completion to the Angels lineup and also to their defense. I know that Velazquez is better defensively, but, Urshela is not a bad second option there. I think it really completes the lineup. I think there's still a lot of questions with, do they see Luis Rengifo mimicking the same season he had last year where he had a 103 OPS plus? Do they see a bounce back from Jared Walsh and Max Stassi offensively? Because that would really round out that lineup and make it a lot more complete than it has been ever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Angels are always an interesting team. I just looked at their payroll, and their estimated payroll, according to Baseball Reference, is about $180 million right now, which is kind of surprising to me considering that the Pujols and Upton contracts are gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, now
Trout.
They have to pay Ohtani now also.
In arbitration, yeah.
Because they paid him like $5.5 million last year.
Now they're
going to
have to pay him like $25 million.
I think they already did the arbitration. It was $30 million.
Oh, okay.
So they're paying Ohtani Ohtani, Rendon, and Trout are all getting $30+ million. So yeah, they have to pay for the talents that is there. But yeah, there's still some work to be done, and the fact is they have the worst farm system in the majors.
Yes, but they do have some guys that look intriguing. Logan O'Happy was acquired for Brandon Marsh. He's their number 1 prospect, and he was killing it in Double-A.
I'd say
with the Rocket City Trash Pandas.
Yeah, I'd say there's
He's a catcher.
I'd say there's some interesting guy. Maybe not guys, but interesting guys.
There's a guy.
There's an interesting guy in that farm system.
Yeah, and his numbers with Rocket, he played 29 games with Rocket City last year, 131 plate appearances, and he had an 1147 OPS.
Yeah, no,
that's pretty good.
He seems like,
and Double-A is usually like where the most talent is.
Right. I think there's a lot to look forward to with him.
Mm-hmm. They had him skip AAA. Lehigh Valley, he played there.
There's not a ton behind him. And Ohtani, this is his last year of control, so we'll see about him. And Rendon, Rendon got surgery last year. It could mean two things. It could mean like he's never going to be the same, or it could mean like that lingering injury is gone and he's going to be able to perform again. But it's going to be, you can't call it with things like that.
Yeah. The Angels have had way too many question marks going into every season where it's like this has to happen and this has to happen and this has to happen for us to have a shot at the playoffs. And it feels like they are tightening up those question marks a lot heading into this season because I do really like each of the moves that Perry's made so far.
Yeah. But also,
I do wonder if now that Artie Moreno's considering selling the team, that he's prioritized that over sort of overbearing the off-season responsibilities on the field.
Yeah.
For the team.
Right. And I'd say also another hole with the Angels is their manager position.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was with that, but
yeah,
Phil Nevin will continue to be the Angels manager.
Yeah. They just didn't go out and try to get a guy who they think is going to be there for at least a few years.
You know what's interesting, by the way? Like you mentioned the Angels having the worst farm system. It's not even like they traded a bunch of prospects to get, big time players, and that's why they have a bad farm system. Like you look at, like the Padres, like they've depleted a lot of their farm, and the quality of it has shrunk a lot.
Yeah.
You can't even really say the same for the Angels. And like they're also the team that has the most reported instances of like mistreatment of minor leaguers.
Yeah.
Like there's a correlation there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I don't have the list, but I remember like one day in class I was bored and I was like, I'm gonna look up every first rounder of the Angels since Mike Trout.
Yeah.
And it's not a great list.
I want to look at it now.
I had to go through like each individual draft, so
yeah, I'll do it on a different time.
Yeah, maybe
I'm trying to think.
Edit it and post.
Yeah,
but it's like I think Taylor Ward is like the headliner, which
he had a good season.
He had a good season.
He had a season of 133 weighted runs created plus.
But yeah, like Joe Adell was one of the first rounders. He hasn't worked out yet. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But yeah, a good amount of guys who just never made it to the MLB. Which will happen, but you never want it to happen too much.
I was going to say, no team goes 10 for 10.
Yeah, no, not at all.
That's a Hall of Fame executive that I've never seen in my life.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, the Angels pulling out the stops early in the off season, and yeah, we'll see if it continues. Mm-hmm. Could go after one of those free agent shortstops. Who knows? We'll see about it. But yeah, they're on hold. Correct. So some more things that happened in the baseball world. Maybe a week or two ago, Teoscar Hernandez traded from the Blue Jays to the Mariners. Erik Swanson was traded from the Mariners, Teoscar Hernandez traded from the Blue Jays to the Mariners. Erik Swanson from the Mariners to the Blue Jays, along with a couple other guys. But those were the headliners. What did you think of that?
Obviously Teoscar Hernandez is a very solid offensive player. He's another type of guy where you know what you're getting from him. He's a similar type of player to Hunter Renfroe, where his highest asset is his power. He had a .491 slugging last year. That was a 3-year low. Since 2020, he has a 519 slugging, which is excellent, really good for 1,300 plate appearances. But at this end, he has how many years of control? Only 1 year of control. I was kind of surprised at how easily they just let go of Erik Swanson like that. I know that sounds crazy because it's a reliever for an everyday outfielder. But Erik Swanson is a really, really underrated reliever. I think he was in the top 10 of F4 among relievers this past season. He was also excellent in 2021 with run prevention specifically. I was very surprised. He ranked 12th in F4 among all relievers last year. 12.02 strikeouts per 9, 1.74 walks per 9, 0.5 home runs per 9, a 1.74 ERA, and 1.84 FIP. Actually, where does that FIP rank? That's a really good.
Yeah, Erik Swanson had a phenomenal year last year.
He had the second best FIP in baseball behind only Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, that's
I understand that an everyday outfielder is just always going to do more than a reliever, but I was very surprised that they just very easily let go of Erik Swanson like that. I know that the Mariners do have a lot of solid relievers, but I was surprised that this is the one that they picked in this particular deal.
Yeah, I totally.
Because he also has 3 years of control.
Yeah. Essentially, what happened was the Blue Jays traded 1 year of an outfielder for 3 years of a reliever.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't think this was the motive at all, but I think it's ironic that right after the Blue Jays blow a giant lead to the Mariners in the playoffs, they try to get one of their relievers.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was correlated at all.
No.
But yeah, I think this deal actually makes a lot of sense for both sides because, I mean, also considering the trade that the Mariners just did where they're letting go of a power hitting outfielder that didn't work for them. Now, they end up getting a power hitting outfielder in Teoscar Hernandez.
And to be fair, Jesse Winker is pretty absent anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like they're we did just mention the Mariners traded Jesse Winker, or we're going to get deeper into that, but it's not like he put up huge numbers from the last year, and apparently there was a lot of people fed up with him in the clubhouse as well. He had a 688 OPS, a 103 OPS plus because they played in Seattle and it was a down year for the league offensively.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
But with Erik Swanson, I think from a Mariners perspective, you're he had an amazing year, obviously, a 1.84 FIP in 53 innings or so.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. However, he's pitched some seasons before and it wasn't like that. So you can't really, a lot of the times relievers will just have that random season. I don't know, Jonathan Loaizaga was an example. He did get hurt, but you can't expect this guy
I don't think Erik Swanson's putting up a 1.84 FIP again.
Right.
But I do think he'll be a solid reliever to be a good eighth inning guy to Jordan Romano.
Yeah, and he'll definitely be a great asset. But I think from a Mariners perspective, it's this guy's at his highest value maybe of his career, and we are lacking some outfield power hitting. So let's take
him in the playoffs.
Let's take advantage, and we already have Paul Sewald and Andres Munoz, and even Matt Brash, who just I'm trying to look
Penn
at
Murphy.
Yeah, we already have all those guys, so it's this isn't. We're not getting rid of our only good reliever here.
Yeah.
But we could get a guy who might end up being our only power outfielder.
Our best power outfielder, because they also did trade Kyle Lewis.
They traded Kyle Lewis and Mitch Haniger's on the free agent market.
That is very true.
So I think
they lost Carlos Santana as well. He went to the Pirates.
Right.
I know that he only had he had a lot of big moments for them last season, and only 15 home runs in 79 games. That's a 30 home run pace.
Right.
And not only that, but he also had a lot of win probability added. He picked his spots really well. Obviously, he had the big 3-run homer in that aforementioned Blue Jays-Mariners game. He had a lot of late game action for them. That's a tough loss.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you got to question if Cal Raleigh's going to be able to replicate his offensive performance from last year. Eugenio Suarez is now on the wrong side of 30. It makes sense to bring in a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, even if it's just for 1 year where, you can feel very confident about his production going into the season.
Yeah. As an aside, Matt Brash as a reliever had a 1.97 FIP last year.
Yeah.
So that's pretty
Yeah, you're
gnarly.
expecting a full season of that.
Yeah. But yeah, and from a Blue Jays perspective, I think this also makes sense. I imagine the thought process was like, we're probably not going to extend him, so let's try to get something out of Teoscar Hernandez. He's not their most valuable bat. He's a valuable bat, but he's not their most valuable bat. And offense isn't their problem. They already have George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Alejandro Kirk, among many others, especially righties. Like they don't really have a problem with that. Not that bullpen was a problem, but I mean,
But it was definitely something that can be improved on.
It was like compared to their
It
starters.
was probably their weakest point.
Yeah, and definitely on paper, no doubt. So yeah, and they get 3 years of a reliever. So I think both sides are getting some good benefit out of this.
Yeah, no doubt. It was a solid trade all around. I was very surprised to see both players dealt, though.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like the Teoscar Hernandez Erik Swanson trade is just imminent. It's just like neither team is rebuilding or really stacking up particularly this year. So
they're both in win now mode, and they traded players that are going to help them win now.
Yeah, very.
Which is I think there's just some shock in that.
Yeah, it was like a fantasy trade.
Exactly. It's like the Cespedes Lester trade, even though one of those teams was very much rebuilding. It was like, hey, let's both trade players that are currently contributing to our teams extremely well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the news from Seattle. Well, the first news from Seattle. But in Tampa Bay, not often do you get to see a free agent signing in Tampa Bay, but it happened. A 3-year, $40 million deal handed out to Zach Eflin, known for his days with the Phillies. I think he's only pitched with the Phillies.
He has only pitched with the Phillies, indeed.
He's going from the NL East to the American League East.
I love this signing a lot. Zach Eflin ranks 10th among all pitchers with at least 200 innings pitched in strikeout to walk ratio since the start of 2020. I tweeted the list of pitchers that are above him, and it's all like elite level pitchers.
Right.
Like the worst pitcher there was maybe Nathan Eovaldi.
Yeah.
So he's very, very good. And he's also the type of guy that always has a much lower FIP than his ERA.
Yeah.
And he's now moving from Philly to Tampa.
Yep.
That's gonna make a large difference. Tampa had around league average, outs above average last year, which is a defensive metric via Statcast. But they also had a lot of their primary guys hurt for a lot of the year. We didn't see Wander Franco. We didn't see several Rays players. So I think there's a good chance of defensive resurgence for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
And getting a guy like Zach Eflin, who's going to do the things he can control very well, is going to turn into a contract that's worth it, because I believe this is the biggest contract ever given out in Tampa Bay Rays history.
In Tampa Bay Rays, biggest free agent contract, I would say.
Well, yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Wander Franco would be the owner of the other, but yeah.
Yep. I think, I mean, Zach Eflin definitely overlooked. I think one concern you can see on his stat page is like related to workload. I think he's only qualified for the ERA title once.
But they also put him in as a reliever last year. The Phillies did, because they had a lot of guys in their rotation, and they were like, hey, you know what? This guy can be really good batter to batter. Let's see how this works.
Yeah.
And the Rays, I don't think the Rays are too much worried about workload, because they have the bullpen depth to where if they have Eflin going out there for 5-6 innings every start, that's fine.
And I just looked up his injury history, and none of it is related to like shoulder or elbow, which is good for the Rays. But the Rays have a weird history of like just running through pitchers like they're AA batteries. I mean, it's just it's crazy how many just.
And they gotta buy a new pack every twice a year.
Yeah.
Off season and trade deadline.
Yeah, like they like have a weird history of elbow and shoulder injuries to their pitchers. But we'll see. Zach Eflin, when he pitches, I think there's going to be much better results. Philadelphia has historically had bad defense going back, maybe half a decade now. And Zach Eflin's been pitching there the whole time, and he's not like a rack 'em up strikeout
No.
all the time kind of guy.
He only had a 20% strikeout rate last year.
So if but if he's going to be pitching to contact, it's better with the Rays than the Phillies, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. I wonder what the Rays payroll is. I wonder how much of the payroll he's taking up. Like, I don't know. Maybe they might.
Well, it won't be that much once they sign Jacob deGrom to a 1-year, $55 million contract.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you're saying about peripheral statistics with Zach Eflin. Apparently, the Red Sox also offered like the same exact deal, but he's from Florida, so he chose.
And the Rays are also a better team.
Yeah, true.
I would say.
Yeah.
It's close though. I mean, at full health, I think the Rays are definitely better.
I mean, yeah, like if you just go regular season, they've had a better record all 4 seasons, and they've made the playoffs all 4 seasons.
The Phillies infield actually had a much better outs above average last year than the Rays.
Well, I don't think he's necessarily a ground ball pitcher though.
He's not. He had a 10% launch angle, or 10-degree launch angle. Sorry.
Yeah, I believe.
But also, I mean, like I said, Brandon Lau was not there. Wander Franco wasn't there for most of the season. Mike Zunino wasn't there for most of the season. Like, those are good defensive players that just couldn't be there for the Rays because they were all hurt. Although Kevin Kiermaier will not be there, so that's going to be a tough loss.
Yeah, Eflin had a 28.1% fly ball rate against, which is 6% above average. That was last year specifically. But yeah, Kiermaier's not there. Phillips was released last year. But Arozarena has good defense, I think.
He has good defense.
So yeah, he'll be there, and maybe they'll make some more acquisitions as well. So yeah, that's what the Rays are doing. Zach Eflin. So that'll be McClanahan,
Rasmussen, Springs, Glasnow, and Eflin.
Yeah, pretty deep.
That's definitely the most rotation depth I think they've had in a while, even including 2020.
Yeah. I would agree.
Because, Springs had a very good breakout season last year at 2.46 ERA, Rasmussen as well, McClanahan as well. He was a legitimate ace.
He was a Cy Young front runner for like the first 4 months of the year.
He started the All-Star game.
Yeah.
For the American League. Yeah, and the bullpen, they'll find guys they'll unleash their created player of the year.
Yeah.
This year it was Jason Adam.
They're they're auto-generating right now.
It'll be complete by spring training. They're at 10% loading.
Yeah, they have the 6'4" side armor, 215. They're gonna say he's out of University of Georgia.
I was gonna say they have some 6'1", 210-pound white guy with 2 first names.
Yep.
That throws 98 miles an hour.
It's Charlie Richard.
Yeah, that went to I don't even know.
He went to
went to
Poly.
TCU. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited
to see that guy, whoever that might be.
Yep. That's what the Rays do. And then last deal we'll get into is another Mariners trade. Mariners trade early in the offseason. Who would have thought?
Jerry Dipoto moment.
Do you want to get into that trade?
Yeah, so it just happened right before we started recording. There was a rumor the other day that the Mariners were looking for a left-handed hitting second baseman, probably to replace Adam Frazier because, he was not able to replicate his 2021 first half.
Yep.
During the next season. And they decided on Kolten Wong from the Milwaukee Brewers. I think is a very good upgrade. And they traded Jesse Winker and also Abraham Toro, which is very interesting because if you remember how Toro got to Seattle, that was a trade that really tore apart the clubhouse during a very high moment in the season.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the centerpiece of that deal is gone now.
Right.
Kendall Graveman and Rafael Montero, who had a huge season for the Astros this year, by the way, were traded for Abraham Toro. Maybe there was one other person in there as well, but the bulk of the trade was around him.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Joe Smith. That's who it was. Joe Smith. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I knew it was some reliever with 2 first names.
Yep.
Or not 2 first names, but the most basic name you can think of.
Yeah. But yeah, Winker being traded to the Brewers. I don't know. It just seems sort of right. Just putting him back in the NL Central at a hitter-friendly ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The whole Mariners thing just didn't work out. And
the Brewers desperately need offense.
Yeah.
Rowdy Tellez shouldn't be your number 1 hitter.
Right.
And that's no disrespect to Rowdy Tellez. I like what he brings to the field. He's good for what he is, but that can't be what you're most heavily relying on within your offense.
Very true.
And Jesse Winker, if he can return to 2020 to 2021 form, where he was legitimately one of the top hitters in the league, Milwaukee's got a real team.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of what the Brewers have to do is fill in for Christian Yelich's underperformance, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even the difference between 2018 and 20 Keston Hiura just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm. That never worked out. When was the last time the Brewers developed a hitter?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I remember Orlando Arcia was a big time prospect who came up that didn't work out.
Probably Ryan Braun or something.
Legitimately,
or Jonathan Lucroy, I don't know.
Something
if you
that.
Count it.
It's been a minute. Keston Hiura was a top prospect who didn't work out. Right now we have Jackson Corio, who's probably got the most hype out of all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's
who
in
we
AA.
won't be seeing for a while, probably until 2024 when he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
There's a chance he could come up as a teenager next year, though, which is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, he was AA guy at 18 years old, which is very interesting.
It's funny because they've also arguably the Brewers have had the best home development for pitching in the last 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
Between Burns, Woodruff, Freddie Peralta.
Right. Yeah. And Devin Williams.
Devin Williams as well. Josh. Well, I guess Josh Hader wasn't homegrown, but yeah.
Basically started there, or started getting good there.
Yeah.
He
became a top prospect there. However, he was also wasn't he traded twice? Wasn't he with the Orioles, Astros, and Brewers at all points?
It sounds right.
He definitely was with the Orioles. He was drafted by them in the 19th round of the 2012 draft. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Winker headed out. I don't know. I feel like the Brewers are just going to be a better fit for him, and just that NL Central is he's pretty familiar with it. And I think that's going to be a good move for him. And then Kolten Wong. I know he's good defensively. I haven't really kept tabs on him. Is he
Yeah, I mean he's still solid.
Yeah, that's what I imagine.
I would say he's definitely an upgrade over. He's probably like we said with Hunter Renfroe. He's a 2 to 3 win player. He'll give you league average, above league average offense, high 700s OPS. He'll give you solid defense, good base running. 17 stolen bases last year.
Right. Yeah. No.
Last year he only did it with a 280 BABIP. That could be higher.
Right. What
was his wins above replace? 3.1.
Yeah. Positive. Yeah. Positive defensive contributions. Yeah.
He could be a guy that you're really thankful to have without the shift in place. I want to see how often he got shifted against last year.
Yeah, I definitely like what Seattle's doing here. They're
on a mission.
They already have Teoscar Hernandez, so no real need to keep Jesse Winker if he's
especially if there was some clubhouse issue there.
Right.
He was shifted against 41% of the time last year, which is a career high. It's the only once has he been above 30%. And it was 30.2%, and he had a there was a negative difference. He had a 345 WOBA with a shift and a 331 without, which isn't really a significant enough difference to make any judgment. But
right,
it's interesting to see more with BABIP than WOBA. What will happen there?
Yeah.
I suppose I could see both his BABIP in both situations anyway too.
Right. But yeah, I mean, just overall, like with Kolten Wong, I don't think you have to really dig too deep. I mean, looking at what he was at least 10% above average at the plate. Each of the past 2 years, a positive defensive contributor as well. I think he has a Gold Glove under his belt. Solid base running. He's really grown since the 2013 World Series, believe it or not. And yeah, like that's just an all-around player who's like, you're not going to see a whole lot of love for him, but he's just in the background kind of contributing the whole time.
He had a 291 BABIP without the shift and a 290 with it. So clearly he's going to be so much better.
Yeah, that's true. I can't wait.
Point.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to have a 1100 OPS this year with the shift gone.
With a 545 batting average.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I like that for the Mariners. I think a lot of how this deal is looked
and I like it for the Brewers too, though.
Yeah, but even when Jesse Winker's good, he's kind of like a 3 or 4 win player.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be. Well, I don't know. I mean, now that he's sharing a clubhouse with Rowdy Tellez, which one of them is going to DH?
Yeah, true. Like he doesn't really provide.
Because defense, he becomes a significantly worse player.
Like he doesn't really provide defense. Whether he had negative wins above replacement on Baseball Reference because of that defense.
And on Fangraphs.
Yeah, like and even when he had a 949 OPS in 110 games, his wins above replacement was at 2.7.
Yeah. He's such a Brewer now that I think about it.
He's very much a Brewer. But yeah, like I think the Mariners are winning in this deal so far.
Mm-hmm.
Because even at Winker's best, there's still the detractions and
Kolten
defense
Wong last
and base
year.
running.
Kolten Wong last year had to be fair, he only played 110 games, but yeah, Kolten Wong last year had a higher wins above replacement than Jesse Winker with a 949 OPS.
Right. Yeah.
But that also might be ballpark adjusted too, because he was playing in 2021 Cincy.
Yep. Yeah, that's
which
true.
is pretty brutal against hitters.
Yes. In terms of park factor.
But Kolten Wong played 116 games, which is only 6 more that same season, and had 3.3 wins above replacement. So, I mean, you could also make the same case just going off of 2021.
Yeah, and, Winker's going to get more love because all of his...
It's also 1 year of both, which is worth noting.
Yeah, and, I mean, Winker is going into his age 29 season. I would imagine Wong's, like, in his 30s. He's
probably 30-ish. He is 32 next year.
Yeah, and so even that, it's not a crazy difference. But yeah, I think Winker's going to get a lot more love because all of his contributions are on offense, but and at the plate on offense, not on the bases. Whereas Wong, like he kind of makes his contributions everywhere, so it's less noticeable. But yeah. I like it. I like it for the Mariners there.
I do as well.
All right. Now, do we want to get into a conversation?
Our favorites.
Definitely your favorite.
Yeah.
No doubt your favorite.
Yes.
I enjoy it as well, for sure.
The only thing that gets me going in the offseason is Hall of Fame talk.
Yeah. Specifically, the ballot of the century, sort of.
the ballots that nobody else care about.
Yeah.
Like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens could be Hall of Famers by the next time we record, and nobody's talking about it.
Nope.
Which is, I don't know. I mean, it just goes to show that nobody will ever care about these like era committee ballots.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think social media also adds to the BBWAA ballot because
because there's also there's the tracker team and there's you get to get angry at people's ballots when they have 3 players and it's like Jeff Kent and Omar Vizquel and Torrey Hunter and it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, there's just a lot of interaction with that. Whereas this, it just seems like they just go into a boardroom.
Literally, there's no predicting it.
No.
I mean, we will try to, but so anyway, there are 8 players on the contemporary baseball ballot this year. which, by the way, the Hall of Fame restructured the era committee so that there's only 2 of them now. It's literally pre-1980 and post-1980, which
Yeah.
I think is kind of stupid because you're literally putting 100 years of baseball history into one category,
Yeah,
whereas
very
you're
true.
putting 40 years of baseball history into another category.
Right.
But anyway, the 8 players on the ballot this year are Albert Bell, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Fred McGriff, Dale Murphy, Don Mattingly, Rafael Palmeiro, and Curt Schilling. Each of them, I think, have very compelling cases of their own. I think 5 of them I would put in. And maybe another one of them I personally wouldn't vote for, but wouldn't hate to see get in.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think I kind of hold the same I definitely hold the same opinions on Bonds and Clemens. Whereas so yeah, it was Bonds, Clemens, and I hold the same opinions on Curt Schilling, where I think they should be Hall of Famers. Just like that's how it is. And we also have Hall of Fame bubble case breakdowns for both of them on the YouTube channel Above Replacement Radio. That was recorded
2 years ago, but
like
I mean,
2020
nothing's really changed.
Yeah, no, nothing's changed, except for Curt Schilling requesting to be taken off the BBWA
Yeah,
ballot.
I don't think that'll hold any weight in this
No.
vote, though.
Yeah. And then there's Palmeiro. I would put on there. We talked about it on SCTV3.
Yes, we did.
Where Palmeiro played his last season was 2005. My marker is like whatever you do before 2005. If you get caught with steroids, I'll count that because 2005, if you don't know, was the first year that PED use was made punishable by MLB. So that's when the suspensions started being handed out. In 2004, having injecting HGH was like the same ban as like having a good egg sandwich to fuel yourself.
Yeah.
That's how I view it. Like people, you can take performance enhancing drugs now, but they have to be legal. So but if they're made illegal next year, I'm not going to hold you against it for doing it this year. So yeah, that's my thing with it. And then going back to Palmeiro, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, 70 wins above replacement, pretty easy case. And yeah, Fred McGriff.
I think that's the most compelling case on the ballot as far as maybe overlooked, has a really good chance of getting in. The voters have been released publicly, and 2 of them are Greg Maddux and Chipper Jones, who are longtime teammates of McGriff's.
Yeah.
So I think that's 2 guaranteed votes. It is kind of weird that there's that kind of conflict of interest on the ballot. That's literally how Harold Baines got in, because Jerry Reinsdorf and Pat Gillick were both voting for him. Both had personal ties to his career. But, I think regardless of if they played for them or not, I think Chipper Jones and Greg Maddux definitely both are open-minded enough to see what he was able to do in his career, and especially during the heart of the steroid era, being completely clean.
Yeah.
His name is completely cleared from the record. He maxed out on BBWAA ballots, which is kind of weird in knowing, the grudge that the writers held against steroid guys. There's a guy that had 493 career home runs, almost 2,500 hits in 19 seasons, and an 886 OPS for his career. That's really impressive for 10,000 plate appearances, and he was kind of left off a lot of people's ballots. He had a massive gain in his 10th year on the BBWAA ballot, which is kind of really the start of sabermetric analyzation on these ballots. In 2019, he went from 23.2% the previous year to 39.8%, which is a really, really big gain for 1 year. So people kind of realized at the end of his time on the ballot, oh, hey, we should probably vote for this guy. And I think this committee will do justice in getting Fred McGriff into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That I think they will put him on, especially given his clean record.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's definitely a compelling case. He had. So, you look at it he had a 134 OPS plus, but if he didn't play in the steroid era and he didn't take steroids, then his OPS plus and therefore wins above replacement were negatively affected because like him having as high offensive numbers as he did wasn't as impressive as like, you know, the guys of like Bonds and McGuire. But so yeah, I think yeah, going with like wins above replacement might not be the best thing with McGriff, considering he was not at, you know,
He also played first base, which is
yeah,
a very, you know, wins above replacement takes it down a lot, like in
Right.
value.
and like, you know, you just look at the, like he had 10,000 plate appearances. He had a 377 on base percentage, 509 slugging percentage, 886 OPS. His Fangraphs wins above replacement helps him out more than Baseball Reference. He's at 56.9 over there. And yeah, I think the arguments against him is, you know, the wins above replacement, the defense, and maybe him not having like a crazy peak. Because I'm looking and like, you know, didn't have like, he was never an MVP finalist, you know, which that's based on what the voters think. So, you know, take that with what you will. But, you know, only like 4 or 5 win seasons, according to Baseball Reference. So, I mean, there are some things against him. I think I kind of go back and forth, but I think I lean putting him in. But
Yeah.
I'd have to think about it more.
Mm-hmm. So the one player that I mentioned as I personally wouldn't vote for him, but I would not be mad if he got in, that would be Dale Murphy. I think there are a lot of very strong cases for him. He played in the majors for 18 years. It's funny because by wins above replacement, he was either really good or really bad because he has a career B WAR of 46.5. But if you take out all the years where he had negative B WAR, he's at 49. He had seasons of -0.1, -0.4, -0.6, -0.7, and -0.9, and all of these seasons occurred when he was ages 20 through 22 and ages 36 through 37. So, you know, he was slow to get started in the big leagues, and he certainly didn't go out on the highest of notes. But his peak was very strong. He was basically the player of the 80s. He had a 132 OPS plus throughout the entire 1980s and 6,500 plate appearances, an 852 OPS, and also a wins above replacement of I think 48. He was just very strong throughout that decade. Yeah, 47.1 B WAR throughout the 80s, and let me see where he is in F WAR in the entire decade.
Yeah, I'm looking at stuff like specifically 82 to 87.
Mm-hmm.
He averaged 5.7 B WAR per year, that's above All-Star level.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, really good. Yeah, like I've heard his name a lot, just from like TV and stuff where like people reference him, and I'm like, who? Like you hear of Dale Murphy, you don't really know, but you don't really know what he did, and now we're kind
throughout from 80 to 89. 11 players had a higher F WAR. 11 position players had a higher F WAR than Dale Murphy. All of them are Hall of Famers. It goes Ricky Henderson, who's a Hall of Famer. Wade Boggs, Hall of Famer. Mike Schmidt, Hall of Famer. Robin Yount, Cal Ripken Jr., Alan Trammell, Eddie Murphy, George Brett, Tim Raines, Ozzie Smith, Gary Carter. Every single one of those guys are Hall of Famers. Right behind him, Andre Dawson, who's a Hall of Famer. And then you get into a pool of overlooked candidates between Murphy, Keith Hernandez, Dwight Evans, Lou Whitaker. You know, a lot of guys that I think could be in, but aren't. Yeah, I mean, he was one of the premier players of that decade. If we're talking culturally, you know, he played on the Braves as a star player at the time where the Braves were the most accessible team for a national audience because, you know, the Turner family owned the team. They were like the first teams to be watchable for 162 games a year.
Right.
So a lot of people got to see Dale Murphy at a time where you couldn't see many other players. So culturally, that's the sort of impact that he has as well.
Yeah, and you know, the Hall of Fame a lot of the time does go past the numbers. But yeah, if you go 1982 to 1987, there's only 7 players ahead of him in Baseball Reference wins above replacement, and yeah, they're all Hall of Famers. It's Boggs, Henderson, Schmidt, Ripken, Raines, Gary Carter, Alan Trammell.
Yeah.
And then Dale Murphy, yeah.
I personally, like I mentioned, I wouldn't vote for him. And I think the only thing that's I'm missing from him is a longer peak.
Yeah.
But like I said, if he gets in, you're not going to hear any complaints from me.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think like it's similar to like some of the guys that were elected in those
I think the only way you'd hear a complaint by me is if he's like the only one that gets in.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a problem
Yeah.
because he is not the best player on that ballot, and that's fine.
What position did he play?
Third base? Oh no, outfield, first base, and catcher.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he was like a primary catcher, but then I saw all the 162s
Yeah.
in the games played. And I
Yeah,
was
there's
like,
no
no.
that would make him a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Yeah, he played 162 games for 4 straight seasons, then 150 or 160 the next year in 86, 159, 156, 154, 154. Dale Murphy was good at just staying on the field,
Yeah.
which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And that added to his overall production.
Yeah.
2 MVPs. I think you probably mentioned that.
I did not.
2 MVPs I'm noticing.
Back to back.
Yeah. That's
80,
cool.
82 and 83. Yeah, I mean, like, he has the BBWAA approval as far as, like, awards back then. Like, you know, he has the accolades to get in.
Right.
What was his? Wow, he never topped 20% on the BBWA ballots. That's oh no, he topped at 23.2% his second try. That's actually outrageous. That's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, with Murphy, I think with the voters, it's a matter of them thinking if his peak was long enough or if his peak was enough to get him in.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't much.
And I think there's no right or wrong answer to that. I think there's very good arguments to be made either way.
Yeah, I agree.
Who do you want to talk about next?
We could get the Don Mattingly stuff out of the way.
Yeah. Maybe this is a biased thing for me because I'm a Red Sox fan from New York and I grew up with diehard Yankee fan baseball coaches that I'm still close with to this day that grew up watching Don Mattingly and insist that he's a Hall of Famer. I personally disagree. Take the reasons I just talked about with Dale Murphy and why I wouldn't vote for him and kind of multiply them. Don Mattingly just didn't have the peak. He had the his peak was good enough if he did that for like 4 years more than he actually did.
Yeah.
Like if his 84 to 87 seasons were more than just 84 to 87, I'd consider, but I can't in good conscience do it.
Right.
And he hasn't gotten a lot of support from the ARR committee ballots to begin with, so I don't think he's going to go in. I think he's going to get like maybe 4 or 5 votes at the most. His support on the BBWA ballot also dwindled. He topped out in his first year at 28%, and then he finished out at 9% 15 years later. So, I really don't think he's going to get in. I wouldn't be too happy if he did.
Yeah, I think what people argue for him is like, you look at his offense and you look at the batting average, and 307 batting average for a pretty full career. Didn't get 8,000 plate appearances, but like if you think batting average is like the marker for offensive success, then you probably would think he's like a Hall of Famer because it's an extremely good batting average to have. But you look at on base percentage, it's 358.
Yeah. Well, what was his walk rate plus? It probably was. I mean, like walks weren't that prevalent in the 80s anyway. He also I'm not going to hold this against him because then I'd be a major hypocrite. But it's also very funny that he played for the Yankees for 14 years and never won a playoff series and only made it to the playoffs once.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking Yankee legacy, like that's not something to be proud of. Like Yankee players are judged based on what they do in the postseason and their ability to get the team to the World Series.
Right. But yeah, Mattingly, 307 batting average. He had more walks than strikeouts. Barely ever struck out. So I think that's kind of the older school type fan.
Yeah, he had a walk rate. He had a walk rate plus of 86, OBP plus of 108. Yeah,
in his career.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, 830 OPS, 127 OPS plus in less than 8,000 plate appearances, and it's not like he was a good defender or base runner. You know, what he did at the plate was what he did in his career. So yeah, you know, I think an older school style of fan really likes him because of how well he hit the ball and how well he made contact. But, you know,
that and there's also just the novelty of he played for the Yankees.
Yeah, he was the best player on the Yankees for like a decade or maybe half a decade or so. You know, he helped them. You know
what's really interesting that I'm now seeing? Kirby Puckett had very similar numbers, and he was a first ballot BBWA Hall of Famer. I guess he did have a 318 batting average compared to 307. But, I mean, if we're talking OBP, slugging, OPS plus.
Yeah.
I think if we redid that vote, things would be different.
Well, didn't he have to retire because of something?
He did. He got hurt. But he also retired at age 35.
He retired in a year.
And he went out. He did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He had, like, some sort of...
I think it was, like, a condition or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kirby Puckett.
Yeah, he went out with a 130 OPS plus in 137 games and 600 plate appearances. And he also, like I said, he had a 318 batting average compared to a 307. Is looked at a lot differently, especially for 2001 when he was first on the ballot.
And he had playoff moments.
Yes, he did. Like, he had a literal walk-off home run in the World Series.
Good catch. He,
yep.
You know, was it like a walk-off ground rule double or something?
Well, that was Gene Larkin.
Oh, okay.
Gene Larkin. He hit a walk-off home run in Game 6 the night before. He had like a David Freese moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he also, worth noting, he in the ALCS that year too, he hit 429 with an 1197 OPS. And then he had a 950 OPS in the World Series against the Braves that year. Also just one of the best World Series ever played. He had a CWPA of 19.4.
Twins legend Kirby Puckett announced his retirement, the result of vision problems that had developed late in 1996 spring training. So
that sucks.
When you get in it, you know.
Yeah. There were obviously underlying circumstances and very little things that put Puckett over the edge, but statistically for the whole career, very similar numbers to Don Mattingly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Don Mattingly... He won a bunch of Gold Gloves. That's
he did.
So stupid.
Well, but also Gold Gloves are not fun to look at, especially for that era, because Gold Gloves are basically who's the most, not even who's the best player, just who's the most popular player. Like, we're talking about Rafael Palmeiro. He won a Gold Glove in, I believe it was 1999, when he played 128 games as a DH.
Yep. Yeah,
that's the era we're talking about of Gold Gloves.
I'm not looking at Don Mattingly's Gold Gloves the same way I do at Keith Hernandez's. You know, it's just, yeah.
Or even just like Nolan Arenado.
Right. Exactly.
To be fair, there's also numbers, and we get to see him, so maybe it's different. But
yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't.
You know what's very funny, by the way? Don Mattingly was so much. Well, I mean. Don Mattingly was so much better in 1986, and he won the MVP in 85, but he also lost it to a pitcher. So it's not like you can blame the writers for, you know.
Yeah, but he drove more runs in 85, so he was better. He was better.
He's so much better.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with Andrew McCutchen that one time.
Did happen with Andrew McCutchen in 2014-13.
Yep. Who are the other guys on the ballot?
Albert Bell. Albert Bell probably has the weakest case. I think he's very overlooked offensively. He also had a very relatively short career for someone that's being considered in the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
absolutely.
But his peak offensively was legit.
Yeah, I mean...
He had, 4 seasons? He had 3 seasons with an OPS plus above 170. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and...
4 seasons with an OPS above 1,000.
Yeah, from 94 to 98, had a 1020 OPS.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Also, 94 to 96 was third in MVP, second in MVP, third in MVP.
And 7th the year before that.
7th the year before that, and then 8th in 1998.
Mm-hmm. From 1993 to 98, he had a 1,003 OPS and a 158 OPS plus. And he also played like virtually every game in those seasons except for 94, which actually
Well, he did play.
he did play in 1994. I forgot for a second.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
He is I don't know, like defense, kind of held him back a lot, and he also only played for 12 seasons. So it is tough to accumulate enough to be a Hall of Famer over that short of a span, especially
less than
without
7,000
defense.
plate appearances.
Yeah.
Like we just talked about Mattingly not getting 8,000.
Yeah, very prolific hitter, no doubt. Probably not. I also don't think he's going to get in. I think he's going to get probably the fewest support out of all the players there.
Yep.
Nothing I have against Albert Bell. I think he's a fantastic hitter, but lack of defense and lack of career, really.
Yeah.
Like Hall of Fame wise, lack of career. When we're talking about, Fred McGriff, who played for 19 seasons, and Rafael Palmeiro, who played for over 20, and Bonds and Clemens, who played for a long time, Schilling, who played for a long time, 12 years is tough to get behind, regardless.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's just, you're held to a very high standard with Hall of Fame. You got to do it for more than 4 or 5 seasons for sure. But that was kind of what Bell did. And then what's the last one?
Schilling, Bonds, Clemens, and that's it, I think.
Yep.
Well, I guess we never went deep into Palmeiro. You talked about him briefly.
I talked about him briefly, but I don't know. I think it's just if you think PED guys should be allowed into the Hall of Fame, I think you think Palmeiro's deserving, and if you don't, then you don't think Palmeiro's deserving.
Yeah. I mean, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, it kind of just, it speaks for itself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't like only looking at count stats, but when you have those two things, it's very hard to argue whether you're Hall of Fame worthy or not.
Right. And 132 OPS plus in 12,000 plate appearances.
Yeah, he played a long, long time.
And when he in the seasons he was active. I think it's kind of a concrete thing. You kind of know where you stand. You don't really go back and forth on a guy like that, considering his history. Do we want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about Bonds, Clemens, and Schilling. Both of us are in favor of them.
Yeah.
Pretty passionately, I'd say.
Yeah.
Bonds and Clemens definitely more so, but
yeah.
That kind of goes without saying. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there are very few ways that they could screw this up, but the ways that they could are bad.
Right.
The era committees are always known for doing something.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. The only era committee election that I can remember walking away from somewhat satisfied was 2019 when they put in Marvin Miller and Ted Simmons, but they also left out Lou Whitaker, and I was pissed about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to, here's the thing. Like I said, I think there are 5 players, maybe 6, that are definitely worthy. Not all 5 to 6 of them are going to get in. I know that people that just aren't going to make it that I think should. I'm going to try not to get upset about that.
Yep.
But we'll see. I think my prediction is that McGriff gets in with about 14 votes. I think Bonds and Clemens get around 10 to 11. Schilling, I think, gets in with 12 to 13 votes. Mattingly, Bell get 5 or less votes. And then Murphy, I think he gets 8 to 9 votes. And then Palmeiro gets also less than 5. I think just McGriff and Schilling get in.
Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I think I agree with you that McGriff is the most compelling non-steroid.
I think he has the best chance.
Non-compelling, non-steroid or controversial guy in general.
Yeah. But when you consider steroids, I think no one has a better shot of getting in than Fred McGriff.
Yep.
And I'm very happy about that because he deserves it. Yep.
And yeah, that'll do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. Good to get back on after 2.5 weeks of being off or so.
Absolutely.
Talking about the world of baseball in the off season.
When we we'll probably be recapping the contemporary era committee ballot by the next time we're recording, because that will have happened. It's this Sunday. It'll be on MLB Network. I think it's around 6 p.m. Eastern time. And then we can start talking about the BBWAA ballot that just released this week. We have 4 ballots in already. Tracker season is getting started.
Yeah, and I can't wait personally to talk about the Xander Bogaerts extension from the Red Sox. That'll happen.
That will happen, for
and
sure.
the Rafael Devers extension and the Carlos Rodon signing by the Red Sox.
And the Aaron Judge signing to a 3-year, $60 million contract that will happen.
Yeah, with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited for all that next week.
And also Ted Williams coming back from the dead.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the Red Sox to, they're going to get Wander Franco for Ryan Brazier. That's a trade that's going to happen.
That will happen. They'll put him at second. Well, actually, why would they put him? Because they're going to bring back Xander. They're going to have Story.
Maybe have him catch.
Yeah.
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 I was just trying to think of a random young guy. I didn't think of the logistics when I thought of that one. My mistake.
Yeah, it's all right.
But yeah, we hope
it doesn't matter. And they're also going to trade back Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
We're actually going to give them Alex Verdugo and Connor Wong.
And they're going to eat the contract.
Yes. They're going to be like, you know what? We made a mistake.
Yeah.
Both the Red Sox and Dodgers. Actually, just the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to request the trade.
Yeah. Haim's on the phone like, oh, hey, hello, Andrew.
Andrew?
Andrew?
Do you have the wrong number?
I'm excited for all that.
I know you're upset we got Chris Martin, but like...
Yeah. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this installment of Above Replacement Radio. If you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. And follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to
what's
see
crazy?
you.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's been so long that we've recorded that we completely skipped over the whole, well, in case you need our Instagrams, just in case Twitter doesn't exist the next time we record era. That was a quick, 4 days.
Yeah.
We skipped over that entire timeline in between recordings.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, what else happened? Thanksgiving happened. And Best of Broadway happened.
It did.
Good show.
Thank you.
Daniel performed a senior number to
I did a flip.
It was I was pumped. I was pretty pumped to see that. But yeah, we hope you enjoy this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again.
This conversation is over.